everyone. Good morning. It's an honor to be here with Bosco and Federico. The topic that we bring, hopefully, is quite relevant to all of us. So we're living through I would say, the biggest skill transition of the past decades with the emergence of generative AI. Particularly over the past years and everything that is coming on the back-end tools to the market. Federico and Bosco have been on their companies, obviously touching a lot of the innovation that we can bring on the edtech space. How can we scale the access to reskilling and upskilling and bring innovation to the market? According to, I'll just start with just some brief stats around this. According to the World Economic Forum, 44% of the workers will be affected by the skills transition in the coming years. And also, on the other side, the impact or the potential impact on GDP of generative AI is close to 1.2 to 1.5% per year. And so we're talking about, obviously, a very meaningful opportunity for all of us if we grasp the edtech innovations and everything that is coming around this market. And so I'll first start with Federico, and going back, what is the real state of the skills gap, and what changes have you seen in the market, maybe particularly through the last year?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here. Well, there are two things I'd like to say here. The first one is that, well, the skill gap is real, and it's huge, and it's growing, because the technologies are affecting every aspect of our life, both at a professional level, but also at a personal level. And we see that this gap is increasing because technology is moving so fast that it's difficult to keep up at that pace. And the second is that somehow, as a positive side effect of the pandemic, technology was introduced in education at a much faster pace than in 2 years than in the previous 20 years. And that's a good sign, because now we learned the lessons, and now everyone is used to take classes at home, to learn through the technology platforms. And we also see that the micro-credentials are becoming more and more relevant, which is linked to technology, but also more to the broader education ecosystem. So all in all, I would say that as I was interviewing Vice President of the Commission, Skinas, a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that we need a skill revolution. And I think he was right, because we cannot continue simply with small increases. We really need to make a giant leap to catch up. And it's super important, because if we don't do that, companies will not have the relevant skills they need to be competitive, and eventually Europe will not be competitive as a continent. So it's extremely relevant.
Definitely. So that's a good segue to Bosco. So what is blocking people from actually taking these upskilling and reskilling training?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you very much again, Marta and Federico. It's obvious that there's a huge problem. We know that. We always like to have a look into a fact, which is from the European Commission also. They told us, which is in Europe there's 5 million of job vacancies, despite being 11 million people unemployed. No, so this is something that obviously, like the labor market, it's not matching for itself. Like people from the 11 million people, there should be people grabbing these jobs. What's happening now, what we're seeing is like companies require specific skills, which are not doing a university career and that's it, which can be AI, data science, whatever. And the huge problem is, as Federico was saying, like the private sector is growing fast and people don't have money to pay for these trainings, no? This upskilling, this reskilling that we all hear about them. What happens if someone wants to do a master's in data science where the tuition is around 10K, no? So that's how we attack the skills problem, and we want to pay the tuition to the students. No? The big pain that we see is students don't have money, it's obvious. So they have a real big pain going to the upskilling and reskilling. So what we try to do is via ISAs, is in-country agreements, you know them well, and what we do is we pay the tuition, and once they land into a job, we charge them a percentage of the salary. This is, we think, if not, we wouldn't be here, the perfect tool to end up with all of this big problem of unemployment, no? Because it's real. At least in Spain and most of Europe, England does it. Well, it's not Europe now, but does it a bit better. That they pay for their citizens' tuition. But if you want, there isn't any. The state doesn't pay for you for these things. No. So in the private sector, I think we need to sum up and start doing these initiatives, because if not, the gap, the skills gap, which we know, is going to keep growing and growing.
And obviously, we know that the past year we went through a big transition with interest rates, the world of zero interest rates terminating and impacting, obviously, a lot of layoffs in the tech space. Has that affected the employability of these obviously reskills that you have been training? What is your assessment of that labor market?
Yeah, for sure. Like, obviously, what we from the beginning we did a scoring. Like, the ISA is not for everyone. Like, if someone we actually need to be very careful with don't pay anything until you land into a job, because everyone's like, okay, I'll do it. No, but we need to. At the end, we're investing in students also, so we need to grab the good students. But for sure, it's been affected. No, all of these huge layoffs in the high tech companies. However, everyone thinks only about coders or full stack development, but there's hundreds of trends that you can get skills, as, I don't know, AI, data scientists. Also, I think it's for another topic, but super interesting. What we call green jobs, for example, or what we call, it's super interesting. For example, big companies like Iberdrola have a huge pain, they tell us, huge pain, finding solar panel installments, like workforce, no? You do a training of 4 or 5 months, the worker grabs a job directly, 100% employability. So there's also, we were speaking before, like grabbing what's the demand of the companies and trying to train them on that.
Definitely.
But definitely, sure, like the layoffs haven't been.
Just at Student Finance, we also saw so we were focusing a lot on the reskilling space, and through the last year, what we saw was a big need to also emphasize our presence in the upskilling because of Gen AI, right? Because this is impacting all the functions in every company, right? From operations, finance, marketing, sales. And so what we see is actually a big possibility for us, all of us, to use AI as a personal assistant, really empowering what we can actually achieve. And we've even seen quotes of the CEOs of NVIDIA and OpenAI saying that everyone in the world now is a coder. And the fact is that this now is a possibility. So we are living in a world where if we learn how to use the tools and to get the right skills, which are becoming a lot more soft and actually human skills versus the hard coding and engineering skills, we all can actually achieve a lot more and build a lot of value in a much more independent and unique way. And that's absolutely empowering from where we sit. We are actually seeing this. Real life examples, Klarna released a couple of months ago an assistant where actually they are replacing customer support agents, AI assistant replacing 700 agents in over 35 languages, reducing the time of response and actually the effectiveness. And I think the important message is also to emphasize that the job transition, right? We should not be scared of using AI into our daily functions and adopt this and these tools, right? We should embrace the time and the focus on adding value tasks versus really being stuck in the pipeline generation or a lot of repetitive tasks. That's where AI will come in and help us massively. I don't know, Federico, I wanted to go back, because you mentioned also this will obviously be done through a lot of the micro-learning, etc. Do you see employers already receptive to these more alternative and maybe upskilling focused type of education?
Well, not at the level I would expect. So micro-credentials, I think one of the pioneers was Google, and they are way ahead of many other companies. And in the US, other companies followed this example. In Europe, we are still lagging behind when it comes to micro-credentials. We are getting there, but very often we use American platforms. So I don't really see the European ecosystem ready yet for micro-credentials. There are interesting players, though, but not at the scale of the American ones. And I think the main priority for us would be to really have the private players to stepping up, also in terms of funding, because in the end, if you look at the US, which is always a reference for us for obvious reasons, you see that a lot comes from the private sector. And in Europe, we have many public initiatives that are really doing well. I mean, ourselves, for example, we are able to mobilize for the coming 4 years more than 200 scholarships paid by the European Commission for students, paying their tuition fees for the masters, which is pretty high, so that's great. But it's 200, so it's not at the scale we would expect. And we have corporates also entering into this in the mechanism, but still the level is not the one we would need to be able to massively upskill or build a new generation of talents. So I would say that there's still some work to do, and it's urgent because I think the education ecosystem in Europe is still one of the best ones worldwide. But if we don't innovate and we don't bring technology in education, then we may face a risk of lagging behind.
And that is definitely a crucial point around the scalability, because we are at the point where everyone understands, or at least acknowledges, the importance and the increasing importance of training, reskilling, upskilling, but we are still very, very far from where we need to be as a society. And this is not Europe alone, but certainly Europe is falling behind the US in those terms. Bosco, can income share agreements and these alternative financing models actually bridge the gap? What is the user awareness of the models? Because obviously in Europe, people are also not used to taking education to train, and therefore they have been historically running away from traditional finance and going just more for obviously those type of becas, etc., to get the tuition fees covered. Are income share agreements and these alternative financing effective as of today?
Like, again, I think obviously they are, and I hope that during the following years it's going to be like we truly believe it is, because like it's pretty obvious that, as I was saying before, like governments, England does income sharing agreements, no? But all of the governments, instead of giving, I don't know, super scholarships for MIT or super scholarships to 2 different boys and girls or whatever, as we're saying, we need a huge, massive reskilling and upskilling. It's not specific scholarships, no? So the ISA, we think right now it's private, like we get funding from private investors. It's a difficult product because you deploy, but you start seeing the cash flows in 6-7 months, and it's quite difficult, but this should be, from my point of view, money from the government. And if the ISA is funded by the proper governments of Europe, it would be like a rocket initiative for the skillings. I think it's good to mention because I think the 3 of us have passed, and I think they're doing an incredible job. Well, there's lots of verticals, no? But the European Commission, European Investment Fund, all of these, because we got a grant now from the European Investment Fund. They're a public entity, obviously, but they have a really private mindset. So they're addressing the problem. They know that there's, again, 5 million job vacancies, 11 million people unemployed in Europe. Something's happening. The gap is growing. What do? They see the ISAs as a good tool. Like, okay, people don't have money. Let's pay for them, and they can pay it back when they land into a job. It's the minimum, no? And they're giving like help from the government, well, from the European Commission, helping with defaults, etc., which is amazing because it's the only way, not the only way, but the way like to start injecting this all across Europe, and they have an initiative of please do it across Europe, not just in Spain, not just in Germany, not just in. So I think that we're in it's a very new product, but I think the logic says that it needs to go through there.
Absolutely. This is obviously a problem that we all need to solve it together, and certainly the Commission's involvement from that public side really will boost, like Federico was saying, the private market and hopefully get that scalability. Also, just to note that on income share agreements, I think it's really important just to mention that we're also bringing up to the conversation the employment outcomes, right? Because we used to have education very detached or somehow detached from the labor market, right? And when we bring these innovative models that bring employability and skills to the forefront, we're actually connecting and making people reflect on the decisions of training that they're making what is the real impact in the labor market? What is the real impact in the salary progression? And that brings a very interesting reflection and accountability to all stakeholders involved in obviously the upskilling and reskilling conversation.
Completely.
But I'll go back to Federico. What are the kind of the big trends in EdTech that you are seeing affecting scalability? Any specific projects that you have been involved with that you would like to kind of highlight?
Yeah, well, you said it right before when you said, and also Bosco was referring to that, there are many players out there and we have to team up. So for us, the most important thing is that we work as an ecosystem. It works in education, but it's the same when we look at other technology trends that we see, like the semiconductor technologies or AI. We cannot work in isolation anymore. And we see more and more in our ecosystem, even competitors working together to achieve a bigger result for the benefit of Europe and eventually European citizens. When it comes to platform, I have to say that I see, again here, a couple of interesting trends. One is that indeed generative AI is becoming more and more relevant for training, for live translations. For example, we have a platform that we use for our training that translates in real time the class, so people can learn in their own language, which is, yeah, everybody speaks English, but in Europe we also have this diversity that we have to nurture. We are very proud of our member states' languages, so it's important to also keep that, and it makes education more accessible eventually, because even if English is very well known by almost everyone, it's not everyone at all, so we need to be able to speak their language. So that's one trend we see. And the other one is more on the matching, and goes back to what you said before. It's a project we are bringing together with one of our portfolio companies, where we bridge the demand and the offer through AI models. So if I'm an employer and I'm looking for a cybersecurity analyst, I can search in my platform and I can find all people that participated in trainings from multiple providers, so again, ecosystem, that followed specific path to becoming a cybersecurity analyst or a CFO or whatever type of profile you need. And again, the artificial intelligence engine is the one that brings together the two elements.
Oh, very interesting. Definitely we are seeing a surge in usage of Gen AI to build and bring a lot of better products to the market at the end of the day, with a lot of customization for the user, which is excellent. I think that the matching on what people ought to be studying and then the placement in the labor market is absolutely crucial to match all the sides of the equation and make sure that training is effective to solve, you know, the obviously a user problem, but also a society problem in what you were mentioning before, that despite of having a very qualified workforce, that there are still a lot of jobs to be filled, and particularly with the level of skills that we needed. What is, in your opinion, kind of a core emerging skill or tool that you would kind of recommend everyone looking at in the current labor market?
Well,
any of you?
You want to go first?
Well, okay. No, just yeah. To add on what you were saying before, I think you're completely right on. I personally didn't. Well, I wasn't an expert, and I'm not even now, but on education 3 years ago. But I never thought that how important the employability was related to the education provider. No, I just thought, like, actually when we were doing scoring, we were saying, okay, this student is great, doesn't matter how the training is, and it's incredibly like related, no? Because at the end of the day, people like you said a very interesting thing that maybe in the past years no, but now yes, like people didn't go into a training because of how employed they would get after, no? And nowadays I think it's completely that way. Like people want to work, like and they don't know how to. There's lots of competition, lots of access to also trainings, but I think the key part is on the employability, and as what Federico was saying, like we're starting to see how we call it super talent, for example, which is joining the education provider, the financer like us, and the employer. No, so I don't know, Accenture, Entity Data, all of these players, they are hiring 100 data scientists, junior, every year, no? So how do we train those 100, which at the end of the day, you don't need a super crazy training, no? But like joining the employability of the companies to the education providers, which is much more difficult. We're seeing that what it seems, no? Like, okay, let's train or let's do what we were speaking before, the
Yeah.
ad hoc trainings. But well, yeah, to your question, I think obviously generative AI and AI, everyone speaks about AI, and I think like 99%, including myself, don't know exactly what AI is, how you can do it, etc. So getting the specific trainings on that, I think, is crucial nowadays, just to at least know what it is. Or
Yeah, I would like to add that, I mean, we have to differentiate, I think, two elements. The first one is we need top-notch specialists to fill the 100 vacancies a week that NTT Data, Accenture, and others have. And that's super important because our companies need also to be competitive, they need these specialists. But we also need to take care of everyone else. I mean, not the specialists, but those that are using technology every day, even the grandfather that is using an iPad to connect to the home banking. So it's important because in the end, if they don't understand the basics of cybersecurity, then you can have huge risks because in the end, everyone is affected by technology. So it's important also to balance the specialists and the more general population. And then when you ask about the technologies, of course, very obvious that I would say that everyone should know about cyber, as I just said, which is in a way also can be a showstopper for all the other technologies, because if I'm not safe when I'm using a ChatGPT or another tool, then I need cybersecurity, otherwise this will not scale. But when I see at generative AI on the workforce, I always like to compare it with a laptop or a computer. I don't know, 20 years ago, it was not so common to work with a computer. Now, I don't think anyone that is working in an office works without a computer. And maybe back then, someone was criticizing because everything was faster, easier. You could easily go back and redo a document without having to rewrite it from scratch. But now we are used to it, and it's just normal. And I think that in a few years, it will be just normal to have generative AI on our side when we do our office work. We just have to cope with it and not just hide the problem, rather upskill ourselves and make a good use. And there will be plenty of jobs for everyone. It's just a matter of continuously upskilling and reskilling people. And as a soft skill, I think it goes without saying that we also have to be more flexible, because in the end, we need to get used to an environment and a framework that is changing very quickly. And that's just part of the modern world, I guess.
yeah, I would add too, because you said at the beginning, and people, because it's not tech, it's not fancy, it's not trendy, but the soft skills also we've learned are tremendously important on. Again, I'm speaking about junior level, no, because obviously you're a super senior, you've developed some soft skills, but we're seeing like super bright students, straight A's, like engineers stuff, but we take for granted that you know how to do an interview, we take for granted that you know how to look for a job, we take for granted that you know where the jobs are, but we're seeing that there's really bright people who take the call or whatever, they don't know how to speak, they don't know how to, and I think there's a huge gap there also of training, which is easier, but it also increases the employability a lot.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because on one side, AI is leveling the playing field in the sense that soft skills, which we all have if we nurture them, are becoming the skill, right? And it's more how we interact with the machine, conversational, how we learn how to ask for and communicate the outcome. So a lot of prompt engineering obviously is going to be absolutely core for everyone. But on the other side, we do see the younger generations adopting these new tools at a much faster pace. And so we do need to pay a lot of attention to what is the impact on the older generations, particularly in a stage where people are working. Longevity obviously is making us work till a lot longer, and we are creating definitely a silo for the older people who are a lot less, willing or voluntarily will take this training. Right? So as employers, we need to make sure that a lot of the training is mandatory across the board, and we are being inclusive in involving everyone in an organization to take training to make sure that actually we are matching the opportunity and the productivity potential to everyone. But I would say without any doubt that we are living extremely interesting times, and the most important thing is that it's being more and more about the mindset and our willingness to learn, the tools are bringing a lot of contextualized and personalized learning, and I think that's also a very big trend in this EdTech space, meaning that we're getting exactly what we need as individuals, and therefore it's just really getting our hands dirty, starting to use the tools and benefit from it. I don't know if you would like to add something to wrap up, or we...
Maybe just echo what you just said, because it's very important, and I would like everybody to be aware. I mean, you said something super important, that yeah, technology can help us, can make everything fast, but the soft skills, machines don't have soft skills, and that's what makes human and machine different. So I don't think we have to be scared that technology will replace our jobs, even if some also very important people are saying that, even in the technology world. I just think it's indeed a matter of never stop learning and never stop investing on skills and upskilling and reskilling, and that's important at all levels, but also the public decision makers and the private players have to really take this as an important element of their investments.
Yeah, no, yeah, I would sum up saying also that I personally think, like, we don't know obviously, but the scare awareness of the AI or future technology is going to take our jobs, it's, I think, ridiculous. Like, at the end, mathematicians, when the calculators were created, they were striking because they were going to take the jobs, and I think it's actually super important what we were speaking about, the soft skills, to not like just go into technology straight, no? And yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to Federico and Bosco for joining me on stage, and I hope everyone had a great time.